Okay guys, another video here. I'm going to answer a question that Christopher asked. You asked me what do I do for a living. So what I'll do is walk through this house here. It was a 100-year-old remodel job, complete gut and restore, type 3 asbestos removal, all new plumbing, HVAC, electrical, drywall. So what you have is a 100-year-old house that is brand new on the inside. It still has some of its original features, including the fireplace and this pew. So we preserved the historicity of the house. The floors are all original. When the job started, we covered the floors with paper, construction paper, and 3/8 OSB. And then when the job was done, we lifted all that up and refinished the floors. So this is the main floor. In terms of the structural work that was done on the main floor, this used to be one long room. From the front of the house, this is the east side of the house, all the way to the west side of the house. This was one room. So that one room was separated into an office, a powder room, main floor powder room, because everybody wants main floor powder nowadays, and then a living room. This is the original front door. It used to be leaded H-cane glass, leaded H-cane between the glass, but it was in disrepair, so I rebuilt all the glass panels. Dining room, original trim, original floors, original windows, and then brand new drywall. So in a room like this, one of the big challenges was flushing the drywall up to the trim and getting a good finish here. Because of the difference in depth of the old plaster and lathe and drywall, it was very difficult to do. What you really need to do is remove, what we did here is remove this upper piece of trim. So this piece of trim was removed and the drywall brought in behind it. So that's really the only way you can do this properly. So what you do here on this door frame, you see these old door frames. This particular part of the casing, you can pop this out, and then you're able to loosen up your back bend from your trim here. And then this whole piece of casing just comes out as one big piece. So all this casing here, the casing around this door was removed, and then the drywall brought in behind. So just an example of some of the details required in a job like this. In order to get such a big open space here, there was quite a bit of structural work that was done in the basement, including underpinning. This part of the house is an addition. So in the plans I can show you the demo of the back of the original house and then where the new addition was put on, as well as this massive beam here. There's a huge steel beam running the length of this room. And then downstairs, that column there, the load carries to an underpinned footing in the basement. At the, beneath this here, there was a whole bunch of different points in the house where we had to underpin in order to strengthen the foundation so that we could support all this new structure. So here's the kitchen. It's a very nice kitchen for cooking. Butler pantry. So my job is basically to execute a project like this. I'm given the demolition plans, contracts, and I speak with the contractors, schedule them, organize work for them, make sure that everything is prepped for each consecutive contractor. So before, the house is painted, you gotta make sure all your trim is done, all your flooring is done. There's just certain prerequisites prior to each stage of construction that have to be met. So my job is to ensure everything is ready for the trades. So for example, these old subfloors, when this tile setter came, he did not want to lay tile on the original subfloor. So what I had to do is put a 1/4 inch plywood subfloor on top of the original subfloor in order to give him a more level space to work with. So here you have a his and her Jack and Jill suite, bedroom, and a bathroom, shared bathroom. And then the master ensuite and bedroom. Here it's quite a large space. All new hardwood, 3/4 inch engineered hardwood. All new flooring, cabinetry. Pretty much everything in this house is new, save for old windows and trim features. Here's the view from the second floor. The view out of the front of the house. I just knocked this over into here. So this house is staged right now and on the market for $2.5 million. You got a nice shower, vanity, beautiful view of downtown Hamilton. A Juliet balcony, original Juliet doors. So that is the master bedroom, big walk-in closet, finished in a very basic way, mainly because you should leave some things for the purchaser to finish on their own. Finishing a walk-in closet is a very particular thing to each person. So now going up to the third floor, carpeted stairs, mainly because the stairs were just a nightmare and there's no way they could be refinished. So what I said throughout this project is you have to pick your battles. This is a 100-year-old house and there are a lot of battles. A lot. So third floor bedroom and bathroom. Pretty much every bedroom has a bathroom. This bedroom has this kind of, it's a little strange. The closet is, this bedroom has a lot of closet space. But this is just the way it worked in an old house. So you look here, you got closet space. And then you got another little closet over here, because you're utilizing the existing spaces. So I'll put a floor plan demo and rental plan of the third floor, and look, you've got 2 more closets over here. Attic hatch, spray foam attic. All exterior walls in the house were insulated. So in these old houses, typically what you have is 2 courses of bricks and then some strapping and you're plastering away. There's not a whole lot of insulation value in the old houses. So what we did was we installed dimple board on the back side of the brick and then strapped the wall out by 2x6, and we put insulation bats around the entire perimeter wall of the house. So this house is very well insulated. As well as 2 furnaces, a furnace on the 3rd floor And then the furnace downstairs in the basement. So let's go down to the basement. I have a video, I think I was standing right here while the demo was happening, so I'll include that, as well as any of the architectural plans. So for example, structurally speaking, this room here used to have a partition wall, kind of in line here. So up in the ceiling now, you have an LVL and two new point loads. Be a point load kind of in the wall here, and then you got an LVL running all the way across the whole span of the room. So what that does is it picks up because the joists in this house span from one side to the other side, and then they're sistered together. So now, to make up for the removal of the wall that used to be here, you put in an LVL like that. So, big job, a lot of work. It took a couple years to finish. It could have taken less time, but we tried to sell it before it was finished. We tried to sell it like at the drywall stage. But a house like this is incredibly hard to finish. It is a real challenge to finish. So you have a main floor laundry room. Here's your backyard. Your view of the backyard. The backyard is not yet graded, so that will come this spring. And then a new garage. Very long garage. I don't know if you call this a double deep garage. And finally, the basement, where most of the structural work happened, the underpinning. There's a new furnace down here. So this part of the basement standing in right now was part of the addition. Here you can see the flooring system in this house. So original structure were these, I'm going to say that's a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 8 beam. So that is an original beam on its support, brick to rubble foundation. And here is a new post. So there you have a new post and a new pad engineered for these new loads. So a little note here, as I look at this original architectural plan for the basement, what I remember here is the not complete lack of information, but there's very little information here. So for example, where we were just looking at in the basement on the drawing, you can see there is no detail for a footing or a new beam. So this involved back and forth with the engineer, and what happened is the drawings were refined over time. This post here, supporting a I-beam. I forget the specific I-beams. I can probably find I went back and forth with the engineer. Here you can see, after discussing with the engineer and the engineer coming to visit the site, we've added 2 new footings, and the drawings have become more clear. They've added more instructions on what to remove, and the back and forth with the engineer is extremely important. Just because you receive a set of drawings does not mean that they are complete. A lot of things are assumed when they make these drawings because things are covered up, there are walls in the way. So as we demo, we expose the structure and we can communicate that to the engineer and make revisions to the plan. Here you can see a written explanation for the changes in the drawing for this new dropped beam. So this is just an example of the communications with the engineer and the instructions they give us that we then have to execute on site. On this basement work, many times, I probably had 10 engineering reports. So you can see here, there's another beam and 2 columns, 2 posts. And then these pads are underpinned. So this was pretty simple. You know, you're only underpinning this brick wall here. So you have underpinning here. I'll show it in the drawings what type of pad it was. F3.5. This was, I think, an F4.0, which basically means a 4x4 pad. But the amount of work here was just intense. So we had to tear out the brick wall, shore up on either side, and then tear out the brick wall. Very important to get that detail right. This is probably a good spot in the video to mention one of the disconnects I noticed between the engineers and the site and the architects. And this disconnect is with respect to shoring engineering. Basically, if you don't know an old Irish guy or somebody who understands how to shore up structures, you're kind of screwed. The engineers don't provide any instruction on how to shore. In fact, when I asked them, they refuse to provide instructions on how to shore the building. So in this image, you can see on the back there, the shoring is 6x6 posts. They look like they're spaced about 3 feet apart with a steel jack post in between. That's not a hole. That's a hole. Digging. And then dig. Dig till you get under the footing. Once you get to the underside of the original footing, you got to go down 8 inches at least, and then you have to go under the footing. Basically here, we went under the footing to the point where, I'll show you on the other side of the wall, to the point where we had the hole dug out on this side as well. And basically the concrete went underneath the footing here. So I'll show you some pictures of that. The rebar work was challenging. We only had so much space to get a piece of rebar in there, so to get a 4-foot piece of rebar into a 4-foot hole, I mean, you do the math, it's not easy. And then to get it under the footing. So there, we underpinned here as well for this new post and this I-beam, and then this is picking up the load of the I-beam on the 2nd floor. I think, yeah, we're in the right spot there. So as we performed the demolition, this particular opening got wider and wider, and the engineer had to increase the beam size 2 times during the process. Big basement, it's mostly unfinished. It was insulated, but for the most part, just did the most basic stuff in the basement. New HVAC. And nice cold cellar. This is the front of the house, right under the front porch. Nice cold cellar here, full of windows and doors. 100 years worth of collecting windows and doors. And we didn't reuse a lot of the original doors on the first, second, and third floor, because when you install new trim is not really designed for old doors. So if anybody's a trimmer, you'll understand. It's just, if you're gonna go, also if you're using certain trades, they don't like to deal with the old stuff and the new stuff. Certain trades do not, it's just out of their element to work with old stuff, because the trades that we hired for this job, they come from production environments, and they're used to, working through a house in a day or two. Say you're a trimmer, you work through a house in a day or two. You're using all new material, no old windows. You don't have to trim all these old windows that are out of square, and it's just much simpler. So, I think I'm gonna end the video here. I'll go home and try to include as much previous information, drawings, reports, photos of the original state of the house, and create a little record of this particular project. About a 100-year-old remodel. I don't know if I mentioned this, we did a type 3 asbestos removal in this house. We found whenever a demolition job begins, we get a designated substance survey so that we know exactly where the asbestos is within the house. So here's an example of that survey. The plastering length. So usually when I start a job like this, I'll get an asbestos report done. Because, as a construction worker, as a foreman, I want to know, when we're stirring up dust, what are we stirring up? So what we found is, there was asbestos everywhere, and really a full remediation was, given the scope of the renovation plans, a full gut was required. Otherwise, it would have been a nightmare for all of the trades, and the end product wouldn't have turned out as nice. To have all new drywall, all new plaster, smooth, squared out walls as best as possible. Now, if you look closely on your left, this is an original wall in the house, and it's most noticeable in the tile, the bow in the wall. And this is something that, again, you have to pick your battles when you do something like this. When you do a job like this. This wall is brand new, 2x6 square, plumb, beautiful. A few defects I'm noticing, some of these pot lights are dropping out. So anyway, my job at this point is to finish off this house. I have a handful of things I have to do here. And then I'll start the next job, which is going to be next door to this house, because the lot was quite wide. So the lot was severed, and one became two. Okay, so we'll go outside. I'm just gonna go and make sure the door is locked. Make sure the front door is locked. And then go outside, I'll give you an outside view of the house. And then I'm gonna go home. Okay, that's locked. I don't know if I showed you the details on this fireplace. Because some of this woodworking detail is just quite stunning. I don't know if you can tell, but I got a new camera here. And it's got a little microphone on it, a little light. So, there it is. What I've been working on the last couple months, since November. This has been a lot of work. A lot of work. But it's nearly done. Okay, let's go outside and see what the outside of the house looks like, and then I'll end the video. Make sure everything is locked. Okay. Okay, this is the outside of the house. We'll go from the back. Try to show as much of it as possible. Okay, so there's the back of the house. You can kind of tell the addition, it's a different kind of brick, and then the old. So that roof Just behind the chimney, that is part of the addition, as well as the flat roof in the garage. Okay, so take note of the windows circled in red. This is another example of when you start a demolition process, you're given some plans by the engineer for how to install the new lintels. But what happens is, for example, in this scenario, we found the joists interfered with the installation of the lintel on the back side of the double width brick. After reviewing the situation, the engineer recognized that it was impossible to install a steel lintel on the inside of the brick. So what they did was accepted a single lintel on the outside, but increased the size of it to a 7-inch by 4 3/8. So this is just another example of that back and forth with the engineers. They call this a 4-square American Century brick home. It's got some beautiful alder trees. I think those are alder trees. There's a little river running about 8 feet beneath our feet. Whenever these guys dig for services, they have to use a pump to keep the water out. Alright, there's the front of the house. And that's it, guys. Okay.